Hi, I'm Andrew Wasson from Creative Guitar Studio. Thanks for joining me here on my guitar blog. It is November 20th, 2010, and I'm going to go through some questions that have been coming in off my website this week. I grabbed 3 of them for today. The first one is from Kevin from Augusta, Australia. He wrote in saying he's curious about information in regards to soloing over chords that are major triad with the bass note a whole step above the root. So if you're not too familiar with that, that would basically be like having an A major chord but putting a B in the bass of that. So what winds up happening here is it's kind of a difficult chord to name with a standard chord symbol. It's kind of like a dominant 9 suspended in a way. You got your root to a flat 7, here's your 9, and then here's like a sus4. Sometimes people will also write this chord as a dominant 11th, but what the question is that Kevin had was, he says he finds them in more modern jazz tunes like Pat Metheny's Bright Size Life, and I'm really familiar with that tune. I know that they are indeed in there. He wants to know any suggestions for scales and how to actually approach them. Well, because it is basically a dominant sounding chord, you would focus in on playing over that with the Mixolydian mode. And if you want to do some arpeggio work, dominant 7 arpeggio, get some pretty cool sounds out of the dominants. Plus, of course, you could do major pentatonic sounds. That sounds pretty cool on there. You'll hear that a lot with Larry Carlton. He likes to use his pentatonics on some of those, dominant 7th chords that are slightly suspended. And a lot of times, like I was saying, you'll see these also as dominant 11th. So I tend to see those more like, let's say if I had a B flat chord with C in the bass, like something like that. Sometimes you'll see that written as dominant 11th. It makes a little bit more sense on the layout of the neck, I guess. But really, it's a hard chord to name with a standard chord symbol, but that's how you'd cover it, essentially, Mixolydian. Let's go to the next question. It's kind of a long question. It's an interesting question, though. It's from William out in Los Gatos, California. I hope I pronounced that correctly. He's talking about, I'll read a chunk of his email here. It says, I've been playing with a group. We're all part-time musicians and we have a passion for the blues. Over the course of the year, scheduling and getting sessions together has been problematic. He says they spend so much more time juggling schedules around than they actually do playing. He says that he can understand that everyone has demands on their time. However, all this scheduling is getting him really frustrated to the point of almost seriously just scrapping that direction and maybe trying to start some kind of solo direction or something. He's saying here, I know there must be a better way. Could you do a segment about your experience on working with group dynamics and scheduling? What seems to work for you and what doesn't? Well, this is kind of a tough one because there's 2 directions you can go with jamming with people. You could have a direction where you're jamming with them and everybody is super dedicated and it's like, hardly anybody is ever going to cancel. Maybe in like a 2 or 3 month period, maybe only 1 or 2 cancellations will occur with the group of guys. The other direction with it is sometimes, I have some groups of people that I work with where we may wind up getting a gig, we'll work on stuff, we'll build it up, we'll go do the gig, and then that particular style of music or that kind of thing that we threw together is just not something that, any of us really pursues too hard. And then, we wind up, we don't even jam or anything for months, and maybe we might not get another gig and do any other work together for 6 or 8 months or something, or even a year. I have some people where, I don't hear from them in a year or maybe even a year and a half, and then all of a sudden they're phoning me, they're saying, hey, you know what, man, I got some work for you. You into this, or are you interested? So, there's sort of those 2 sides of it. It depends how freelance that you are in the direction of kind of playing more multiple styles. Maybe if you're playing some, Caribbean stuff, maybe you're playing some rock stuff, maybe you're doing jazz gigs, maybe even also juggling around some solo guitar, fingerstyle classical guitar gigs at banquets or whatever. So, there's these kind of 2 sides of it, but if you've got a style that you're really dedicated to, unfortunately, you're going to have to find guys that are super dedicated and who will just, say, heck yeah, every Thursday night or whatever it may be, that's the night we're going to do jamming and that's it. And they're just super committed. So there's no easy answer for that one. You just got to basically find the right people. We got another question here from California, this time from Sacramento. It's from Matt. He wrote in, I was wondering if you could give us a tour, if you will, of your main guitar, the Stratocaster, detailing the different parts like the pickups and how different pickup types will affect your tone and how to choose what kind of pickup combo that you need for what situation. So I thought that was a pretty cool question. You know, the way I have this Stratocaster set up here, it is very versatile. I'll just go through some of it, you know, just talking about some of the modifications. I have Spurzl tuners on this guitar, the locking type with the post that locks. I've got a graphite nut on this guitar. I've got a Seymour Duncan cool rail in the neck, a Seymour Duncan hot rail in the bridge, and I've got a MIDI controller, but you know what, I have a whole other YouTube video that's dedicated to explaining that guy, so we'll sort of leave that out of the picture for now. But just getting to your question about which pickup combinations to use. Now, the Seymour Duncan cool rail and hot rail, these pickups are pretty high output. So, you know, like let's say if we start at the neck position here, it's great for really fat tone, really kind of really thick bottom end, and it's nice for soloing and jazz styles, and you know, even if I have overdrive on an amp, it can sound really good to go and put on some distortion with that and get a nice Santana-ish kind of sound or Stevie Ray kind of sound. But it's a really effective sound too for clean channel soloing, like, you know, if you're playing some soul stuff or R&B stuff. It's a really, really nice sound, you know, and those, I had done some octaves there. Those are really nice with that pickup on as well. Now, when I flick into the fourth pickup position, I turn on my single coil with that humbucker, so it's actually a really nice sound for doing like jazz rhythm guitar, or maybe soul R&B ideas. Get some really nice sounds in those styles of rhythm, but it's also versatile for maybe other kinds of rhythm stuff, maybe Caribbean stuff, maybe even country and western stuff. So very, very versatile position there. In the middle position is really twangy. It's kind of almost just like country. So don't use it too often because I don't do all that many country gigs. In the second position though, now I turn on the back humbucker, that super high output Seymour Duncan, the hot rail with the center pickup, that single coil. So this can also be good for a lot of styles like Caribbean styles, and sometimes I'll even use it in sort of soul R&B sounds, but you know, it's thinner, you know, it's got a thinner sound to it. So sometimes reggae based stuff, you know. Depends on, you know, what exactly the song is, I guess, but it's a pretty thin sound when you've got that single coil with that humbucker. Now, if I were to put the humbucker on its own, I don't have a distortion setting rigged up on my amp right now to demonstrate this, but on a clean sound, it's really not a great sound out of that hot rail in the bridge position. But you know what, if you slap some distortion, heavy overdrive on that, I mean, you got like that nice Van Halen, Scorpions, Iron Maiden, like you got a really heavy crunchy sound, which can be a pretty tough thing to get out of a Stratocaster, you know, in its original factory state, that's for sure. But anyway, that covers the questions I was going to go through with this week's guitar blog, and that's about all the time that I have for today. So thanks for joining me and sending in all the great questions that you guys submit off the website. I appreciate it. Thanks a million. And for now, take care, and we'll see you next time. Bye for now.